Okay, today we have a lesson entitled Sawing a Plank by Hand, which is quite a challenging task. So we could start with some nice old saws like these, and they come with really lovely old handles. The interesting thing about this one here that I picked up for $5 is that it has approximately 3 or 4 teeth per inch, so the teeth are very coarse. But we're going to put those aside because they're quite difficult to sharpen. Well, they take time. So we're working with a Stanley here, okay? And this Stanley is a supercut 550 with 7 teeth per inch, and it's about 22 inches long. So here's our tool. So just first a little bit about the stance. It's what I call a Tai Chi stance, which is the front foot is facing forward and the back foot back there is 45 degrees pointing out, and you're bent over the front knee and your back leg is almost perfectly straight. So you get the body into the movement and you let the saw do the work. The problem with sawing a board like this is that when you're running down a line, there's a tendency to want to twist and follow the line, and that creates lots of problems. If you start up at an angle like this and then you see that you're veering away from the line, when you come back around here and you do this, you get a big problem, and I'll show you what happens. The first thing that happens is it starts twisting and jamming. So as you can see, I've rammed a coal chisel to open up that gap. But what tends to happen, as you can see right here, is you get a problem where you get a secondary cut veering into the side. And these can happen, little mini ones can happen as well. And so I'm going to teach you how to avoid that problem, because it is achievable. Now, the most important thing also to show you is to start off with a good marking gauge. Oh, that was my coal chisel that fell out. Okay, good marking gauge. This one I restored just day before yesterday. It's got a really nice little brass wedge and a blade. Now, marking gauges come with a screw, a shank, and a main piece and a blade, but they can also come with a point. A point apparently is easier. Depending if you're doing cross grain or along the grain, the blade is better at cross grain, but I'm working with a blade today. So there's almost a little knife edge in there. So you scribe your line, as you do. I'm sure that's another lesson where you know about scribing lines. And then what I do is, with a ballpoint pen, is I draw a little line about 2 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch away from my scribe line, and that's called your cutting line in this case. So I'll put this back in the vise and we'll give you an idea of what's going on. Now, you want to position the board and the vise at the right angle, and I found that vertical is best. If you put it over like this, as you might see them doing when they're doing pit sawing, like out in the forest, and they're coming down at an angle, that's all very well, but you're sawing at an angle, so the top part is over here, the bottom part is over here, and then you tell yourself, no worries, I'll just flip it, and I'll come from here, this side round, and you're at this angle. So what happens next is you get these little veering side cuts. So varying away from the line is the hardest problem, and I pretty much solved it today. Now, I hear you ask, who would like to saw a board by hand? Now, if you're a Luddite basically is anybody who doesn't like to use machinery because they don't like the noise, they don't like to annoy the neighbours, or they just like the grounded, earthy experience of using hand tools. and I fall into that second category. Now, well, the reason we're splaying it with a cold chisel like this, the reason we're opening it with a cold chisel, so I don't know if you can see, actually I'll demonstrate this clearly. See, all boards have inherent tension in them, and if you can see the growth rings here, the direction of those growth rings determines where the tension and the twist happens. Now you can see, although I've sawed this board pretty much halfway down the length by hand, it's springing back together again, and I've got almost no gap. So what's going to happen is that the saw is going to jam. So that's why we need a little wedge like this. Okay, let's open that up. Did this earlier. It won't drop when I do this. Now, just it's opened up about 4mm, or what's that? Almost 1/4 of an inch. So here we go. What you must do when you're sawing is try and keep it horizontal at all times. You'll start climbing and you'll start diving, and you will come from the other side and you'll climb and dive. But too much of that is where you get these veering cuts. And what happens is you're sawing like so, and you're letting the saw do the work. You're not pushing it, not throwing your shoulder into it. And you want to, sometimes when you're veering away from the line, you feel you want to really bend the saw over and really start manipulating the angles, and that's where the big problems come in. Because you think you're fine on this side, and you're starting to climb into the wall when you're at an angle like this, and it starts climbing into the wall and going off the side, and that's where your problems come. So it's best to cut with a nice rhythmic stroke. Use the full length of the blade. Whoops. Now, if you've got a wobbly table like I have, use another cold chisel under the foot. Give it a bit of a tap, and it's nice and sturdy. Right. So, as you're sawing, try and keep the saw horizontal. There's a tendency to start coming down your line and start climbing up the other side. And you can duck your head around and see what progress you're making. See if you're staying on both blue ballpoint lines. So at the moment I'm kind of on track. I'm a little bit veering to the left on the front. Now, you don't want to really twist it out of shape to try and adjust that. You can almost just use your will or your imagination and just still keep it flowing, but kind of imagine that you're moving it in the right direction, because any dramatic shift will cause after effects on the other side. And in your Tai Chi stance like this, you can move your hip, which they do in Tai Chi, the back hip forward, and your shoulders rotate. Now, if you've got a rotator cuff injury like me, your physiotherapist will get you on a rubber band or a gym and move your arm this way and move your arm inside and even up and back this way. But I find handsawing is a good way to exercise the rotator cuff injury. Straighten the bench again. Now let's just check the other side. Well, funny enough, actually pretty much on line. It's starting to veer in towards my marker line, and I don't want that. So there are occasions when you can flip it out, come from the other side, just to keep yourself straight. But what you want to do with this is as you're trying to veer back into the correct path, which I'm doing now, you don't do it too forcefully, you do it gently, and you don't want to come up like an angle like this, because what the saw will do when you're pushing on one side here, it'll push on the opposing side here, and you'll get those cuts into the side of your wall. See, on the inside, when you've finished your board, you'll see these big diagonal opposing lines, and they're cutting down different paths, and you don't want that. So just keep it gentle, try and keep it horizontal. So we're perfectly on track now. I can see it's right down beside the marking line. So I go back to my dominant side, and I just keep it going. Like this. Now if you're sticking a bit, you want a candle or some beeswax, and you can get the teeth, and you can also get the surface, and that helps a lot. And you can just open up with your little wedge, give it a tap, and you'll find that it pretty much doesn't even bind at all. And this morning I made myself a coffee. Normally, being an Englishman, I'm a tea drinker. I have my little fox hunting mug, and that was all the energy I had. And I've sawn from quarter way down to half just in the last 20 minutes or so. So you can get through a 4.5 foot length of ash, which is quite a difficult hardwood, spreading with a wedge, using some candle wax and a good brand new saw. Or if you want to be a traditionalist, which I am as well, you can spend a whole day or half a day de-rusting, resharpening, and setting your teeth on your lovely old Diston saw or whatever you have. But at the moment I'm just going with a simple Stanley, and it's not advertising or anything, but that was the best that I could find in the shop at the time. Turn my head over, check the other side, and I'm just on the line. Keep it flowing, rhythmic, forward and backwards. Try and use the whole length of the blade. Some saws, when you see them, these teeth here and these teeth here almost haven't been used, and only the middle has been worn out, and that's pays to be aware of that very, very much when using a hacksaw. So try and get the full length. Sometimes if you come too far back, it'll go sprawling, and it's not a comfortable experience, but try and use the full blade. They do this bendy thing when you're using too much force. Just use the weight of your arms, gentle action. You can sometimes go up with it when you're coming down your ballpoint line. Check the other side every once in a while, because once you start veering off the line, you have to come back and correct it, like so. And at the moment we're doing pretty good. Earlier when I started this, I did a really nasty 2-inch cut veering off to the side, but what I'll do is I will adjust that later on. Now let me try and explain to you why I'm doing this. Just go into my storage, I'll be right back. I'm designing a wool winder, which is a nice little device that winds wool from a spinning wheel onto a wool winder, and it has 3 drawers. And these boards, which will become 3/4 of an inch thick, will be the basic box on which I fit the drawers. It has carved feet and a turned spindle it will have a cog. It'll have a cog like so, and that cog will drive a little device that tells you how many yardage of wool you're winding. And it's a very, very slow process, but it's more about enjoyment. So I think that kind of brings to the lesson to the end. Not a lot more to say on this kind of subject. Just enjoy yourself.